and Treasurer of the Synod, forward for presenting the Auditor's Report covering the fiscal year ending January 31st of 2025.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. Wow, what presentations we have had so far. And now you're going to have some boring numbers, I guess. So I don't want to put you to sleep, but I hope I can tell our story of the Synod's finances. So what I will be doing first is I will be presenting the auditor's report. Now, the auditor's report is found in section 8, pages 1 to 22. Now, I'm not going over 22 pages of a report, but what I will be doing is I'm going to be summarizing it in a couple of financial statements. So the first statement that I'll be looking at is called the Statement of Financial Position, and that's on the next slide. Okay. The Statement of Financial Position tells us a snapshot of where we stood on January 31st, 25 and 24. And what I'm going to kind of explain is the difference between the 2 years. Basically, what has happened is we have 18 million, I can't see it too good, but 18 million we have in our cash and investments as of January 31st, 25. And our other assets include real estate, trusts, and capitalized leases. Our liabilities were only $191,000, and they are more our accounts payable for the following month. Our net assets have $6,607,000 in them, and they are temporarily restricted and permanently restricted. When they are permanently restricted, we receive investment income from those investments and/or trusts. The net assets with donor restrictions can be found on page 13 of the audit report. We have $15,539,000 in unrestricted net assets, and that includes our funds of the Fund for Mission, the Forward Together in Faith, St. Petri Hope, and our cemetery funds. So that kind of tells you a little bit about where we stand as of January 31st, 2025. Now, you might say, what is the difference between the years? And basically, if we go back to that slot, not the revenue, but the one prior, basically what has happened is, as some of you have heard about some of our stories, we have had Lilly grants that we have received that will be spending those funds over the next 5 years. We've had investment returns in the last year, and that is why we have an increase in our cash and investments, as well as there were some property sales that we had. So those are some of the reasons why our cash and investments have increased from one year to the next. Now I'll go to the next slide, which is our revenue. It's okay. Gotcha. Okay. Well, one fantastic news is that our mission support actually increased by 20,000. So that was a positive. So I thank you all for your personal contributions to your church and for the church's support of our mission. And that is very important. And we do have a schedule in the Bulletin of Reports that you can look up, and you will see your congregation and how much you have given in mission support, also compared to your total revenues. And when you will start to hear a little bit more about our budget, I'm asking congregations to look at what their mission support has been to the Synod, and if you were 5% of your revenues in 2024, I'm asking if you could consider increasing that by 1% to bring us up. If you were at 5, go to 6. If you were 6, go to 7. If you were 10, go to 11. And you will see in our budget the ways that we are using those funds. So our mission support has increased by $20,000. We have other contributions which come from trusts, ELCA grants, unrestricted bequests, the All Saints Appeal, and the Lilly grants. There were also significant unrealized and realized investment gains for both our regular investments and our beneficial interests that we have in trusts. We had 2 property sales this year. One was the property that was at Trinity South Philadelphia, and the other was at Bethany in Roxborough. In summary, the revenues increased by $4 million, primarily by the Lilly grant of $1 million, investment income of over $1 million, and proceeds from property sales of $2,800,000. So that is how our revenue had increased from one year to the next. The next slide is our expenses. And you can see from our expenses, our operating expenses, of course, are the largest. Well, what's in operating expenses? Operating expenses include salaries and benefits, supplies, travel, deans, office, events, and various distributions. We have property management. Our property management includes cemeteries of St. James Chalfont, St. John's Quakertown, Trinity South Philadelphia, and St. Michael's Germantown. In addition, there were property expenses for Bethany Roxborough, Trinity South Philadelphia, St. Paul's East Norriton, and St. Paul's Lansdowne. We have distributions to other agencies. This represents distributions to Muhlenberg College, United Lutheran Seminary, Campus Ministry, Bear Creek, Lutheran Advocacy, and Lutheran Congregational Services. We have grants to organizations. The total of $204,000 comprises the gifts that we've given to seminary loan debt, ELCA, Forward Together in Faith, and Blessed to be a Blessing. Through the Fund for Mission Trustees, 5% of the total for mission balance is eligible to be used for mission. Part of that amount goes to the amount needed for the mission budget, and the balance goes towards the other mission support through the guidance of the Vitality Committee, Pastor Moses Sua Dennis, and Pastor Linda Manson. For the year ended January 31st, 2025, we allocated $197,279 to the mission budget, and we distributed $156,000 from the Fund for Mission and $17,268 from the St. Petri Hope for Mission for churches and other ministries. We gave funds to mission congregations of over 11 congregations and ministries. I now present the audit opinion from Tate, Weller, and Baker as follows. We have audited the accompanying financial statements of Southeastern Pennsylvania Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, the Synod, which comprise the Statement of Financial Position as of January 31st, 2025, and the related statements of activities and cash flows for the year then ended, and the related notes to the financial statements. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Synod as of January 31st, 2025, and the changes in its net assets and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. On behalf of the Synod Council, I put the following resolution before the Assembly. Therefore, be it resolved that the Southeastern Pennsylvania Synod Assembly accepts the audit report for the fiscal year ending January 31st, 2025.
Are there questions from the floor for the Treasurer? Seeing no one running to the mic, are you ready to vote? The motion passes. Thank you, Treasurer Neff.
And before I go, I just want to thank our awesome accountant, Martin Schwab, wherever he is, somewhere. He's the brains behind this whole operation here. And I also want to thank Pia Graham, the chair of our finance committee, and also John Heidgard, who will be losing to another church soon, but we're very thankful for his leadership on the investment committee.
You have to raise a white card.
I'm done now.
Yes. Yes, move the microphone. But Pia Graham is up next, so oh, you're right here, so I'll just move that now. There we go. Let me make sure it looks all tight. There we go. Other duties as assigned. There we go. There we go.
All righty. Now, can everyone hear me?
Sound check that. All right.
Okay.
This is Pia Graham, member of St. John's and Ridge Valley and chairperson of the Finance Committee, now to come forward for the presentation of the proposed budget for fiscal year ending 2027.
Okay. It's my honor to represent. There. Is that better? Okay. It's my honor to represent the Finance Committee, who is in place to do oversight of our finances and to work with our Treasurer Neff and with Senior Accountant Martin Schwab. And I'd like to thank both of them for all of their hard work that they do throughout the year. I'd also like to thank the members of the Finance Committee who give of their time and are very flexible with trying to get to meet. And they are Deacon Kathy Afflerbach, Reverend Paul John, and Reverend Gwendolyn King. May we have the next slide? This is a high-level overview, and if you want to find details on the budget, you will find that also in our audit report, and those are on pages B23 and B24. This is to show you a comparison of our 24 actuals and also what we are proposing as a budget for fiscal year February 1, 2026 through January 31, 2027. So we're talking a year in advance here. We are, as mentioned previously, in 2024, our mission support was $1,521,842, and we are optimistic that in 2026 we could bring that to $1,600,000. Other contributions, you saw previously mentioned that we have received Lilly grants, and that's why with the 2024 audit, that value is at $2,336,422. For 2026, we're not anticipating on receiving grants of such magnitude, so we're projecting a value of $513,686. Registration fees we have projected as going up a little bit because we are meeting in person more often. We're having more educational events and meetings of various sorts. And so we're anticipating that those registration fees might increase a little bit. Our investment income and beneficial interests were beautiful last year. It was a bull market and we were making money on those investments. As many of you know, the market is in great volatility right now. And so I don't know about your retirement accounts, but So we're taking a more conservative view on where, how much our investment income and our beneficial interest in trusts will be. And so that's why that value is lower than the one for 2024. In 2024, we also, as Janet mentioned, had proceeds from property sales. And in 2026, we are projecting that we will have fewer property sales, God willing. So our total revenue numbers are going to be different between what our actual was in 2024 of $9,793,993, and we're projecting for the budget that we would have a lower value of $4,199,572. Next slide, please. For our expenses, as Janet spoke about previously, we have operating expenses that for, running the Synod, a lot of this is the increase in value that we project for the 26 budget is the fact that we are more in office. There are higher costs. We have inflation, so we're projecting a somewhat higher number. Again, being optimistic about our giving with mission support, we're being optimistic that we would be able to share with church-wide of $800,000 in 2026. Property management has a higher value for 2024 because we did have a number of properties that were being managed while they were being sold. Those properties cannot be left alone. They do need to be managed. There are costs involved with getting those sales completed. And again, we're hoping that that number will be less in 2026. With other distributions to other agencies, designated agencies, as Janet mentioned, we're going to have a slight increase in the distributions and perhaps less going to some of the designated agencies. And then as far as grants to organizations, we're also looking at a slightly lower number. So our total expenses in '24 were $3,272,291. We are projecting a slightly higher $3,342,501. Any questions on that so far? Next slide, please. Therefore, on behalf of the Synod Council, I put the following resolution before the Synod Assembly. Therefore, be it resolved that the Southeastern Pennsylvania Synod adopts the budget for the coming year, fiscal year ending January 31, 2027.
Are there any questions to the proposed budget for the coming year? I invite you to rise and come to the microphone.
I guess this is a question that's neither for nor against, so I'll call it as a point of order. I know that one of the nuances of nonprofit accounting is that multi-year grants must be recorded in the year that the grant is received, even though expenses continue for several years beyond the initial recognition of the income. Can you explain a little bit about how we see that in the numbers that you presented as it regards to the Lilly grants?
Those would end up, we would end up having those funds made available moving forward through the next 5 years and moving through mechanisms such as fund for mission and through budgeted amounts to those specific initiatives. And a lot of that breakdown, I believe, is in the audit report.
Could you potentially point out in the numbers where those things show up so we can understand? My understanding would be that there should be deficits, significant deficits related to that accounting method in the out years of the Lilly grant.
I'm going to rely on the treasurer to respond to that level of detail.
I call on the treasurer.
I think, well, let me first explain what I think John is asking. So, for instance, we have recorded as revenue, as we need to, the $1 million on each of the grants that we've received for the Lilly grants. And that's why right now, you saw a revenue of $9 million. What he's saying is, in the next couple of years, if we're expecting over the next 5 years, if on each of these we're spending $250,000 or $200 or whatever, it's going to look like we're having a deficit. And that's correct. That will exactly show that. So in those years, I don't think I'm going to be treasurer anymore after that. And somebody else can explain the deficits. But basically, that's right, since the way we have to handle our accounting is not, I don't want to get into a whole bunch of accounting things, but I don't want to say that we could accrue those grants and kind of put the income in over the next 5 years. We had to put it in now, and then over the next number of years, it will show a deficit. So thank you, John. And I hope I've explained it.
Point of order?
It's similar to John's situation.
So are you speaking for the passage of the budget or against? Or is it a point of order question?
I'll say against. How about
Okay.
that? Sure. Tim
Name
Johansson,
and church.
Tim Johansson, Temple in Havertown. Despite receiving over $2 million in 2024 from sale of properties, it seems that from the numbers given that grants to organizations, which would include churches within our synod, is expected to be decreased by $40,000 from 2024 to 2026. I guess the first part of the question is that correct? Did I read that right?
Yes.
Okay. Why? And why does it have to be that way? I serve on the Forward Together in Faith team. I have worked with congregations who have received grants from various funds and have seen the transformational impact of these grants, and the fact that that number is going to go down in a time where we're talking about pondering anew and innovating and doing new things, it's frustrating and disheartening to see that number decreasing.
First of all, the grants to the organizations are not churches.
Okay.
Okay,
That's good.
so when we're giving through the Fund for Mission, the Forward Together in Faith, that's all happening, but that goes through the Vitality Committee. So as I mentioned, this year we gave $156,000 out to churches and ministries. Right now, I mean, we've had a meeting and we kind of know what we're doing for 2025, but we're not reducing what we're doing with our mission to help our churches. So that's not happening. The organizations are more what we're receiving from the ELCA, and then we pass that on to other organizations. And so, yeah, we have a slight difference of 40,000, but some of that could be, I mean, I'd have to look up the detail of exactly which organizations are a little bit less. But it's not churches or Southeastern Pennsylvania ministries. And as I said, that comes through the Forward Together in Faith, the Fund for Mission, the St. Petri Hope, et cetera.
Okay.
Have I answered your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the budget? Are you ready to vote? Yes. Green is passage of the budget for fiscal year 2027. Red is defeat of the budget for 2027. And I don't know what happens when that happens either. All those in favor of passing the budget for 2027, green. All those voting to defeat the budget, The motion passes. Thank you to both. Yeah.